Here with Shari Weaver, Harbor Interfaith Services and the SPA 8 coordinator, another subject matter expert before me. We spoke to Dion Joseph, Senior Lead Officer at Skid Row, and I know you saw the video. You are our local South Bay subject matter expert. What is a driving force behind homelessness today? Why are people living in cars and streets? Based on your experience and based on the cases that come through Harbor Interfaith.
Economics. It's just really a matter of, seeing the economy is getting better, but what we're seeing is that rental prices are increasingly going up. For those people that are maybe lower wage earners, it's not keeping up with the current rents. I can remember even like my first apartment that I had here in San Pedro was $800 a month. Here we are 10 years later, and it's $1,600 a month. And then we have a lot of people too that are older adults now too, that are living on fixed incomes. It's kind of scary as you figure you've worked all your life, you're retired now, you're gonna get Social Security, and it's not enough to sustain you.
How about those that are most visible? And I text you pictures all the time of those who are clearly disheveled, mentally not all there, those who are clearly under the influence. What certain percentage are those folks that you see in and around the San Pedro, Wilmington areas?
Probably a good 20 to 30%, that has some substance abuse problems, or has mental health, or has a combination of both. It doesn't mean that we can't develop a rapport and a relationship to lead them to permanent housing. It obviously has some inherent challenges that go along with that. But yeah, and if you just think about mental illness alone, these are people that don't have the capability of making good choices. So we try desperately to get them back into mental health services, and if medication is needed, get them back on a regimen.
So you talk about the driving forces behind homelessness today: economics, lack of housing, mental illness, addictions. How does a Bridge Home program help address those issues?
I think for us, it's more of a tool in our tool chest that ultimately will lead to permanent housing. Not always necessarily knowing where people are, especially when they have appointments with the housing authority or they need to go see a property owner that day. People aren't concentrated like they were before down at the post office, where we could readily go down and go, oh, so-and-so's got an appointment, we can go down there and pick them up. They're scattered all over the place.
Let me take you back in the years that we worked together on the streets. When I was with LAPD, homelessness 5, 10, 15 years ago to today, what have been the patterns that we've experienced in this city and this entire region? Well,
I think, just historically for Harbor Interfaith, prior to the coordinated entry system, we focused a lot more on just homeless families. It wasn't until late 2013, 2014 that we actually started focusing on individuals in street homelessness. So it was a new adventure for us. But, obviously I think some of the things that I can talk about is a lot more visibility out in the streets. We're seeing a lot more people living in encampments, in vehicles, and it's not just single adults. We're starting to see families, and that's something that typically we haven't seen in the streets. But I can tell you since 2013 homeless count, that homelessness has increased by 190% here in the South Bay, and that's a huge spike.
Right.
Just in
South Bay
alone.
This is not just San Pedro, Wilmington, or Watts, but the region, South
Bay. Exactly. And in San Pedro, we have about 125 unsheltered individuals that were on the streets back in 2013. Today, it's about 473. 375. And then for Wilmington, it was about 130, and they've really had a significant spike up to 473 individuals, so huge jumps.
We sit here in an incredible resource for this region, Harbor Interfaith Services. Why do we need a Bridge Home program if we have Harbor Interfaith Services?
We're more focused on permanent housing solutions, so knowing that it is a process and it takes time, takes a lot of time. The rental market has less than a 2% vacancy rate, so trying to find an apartment that A, will fit into that household's budget, but B, just finding somebody that may take somebody that has poor credit history, you know, large families, all of those kinds of things takes time.
So there's no housing on this side here,
No, we do have a 20-unit family shelter.
just for families.
Just for families, and then we have a 24-unit apartment complex that's for families that are working towards higher education and increasing their skill set so they have a livable wage when they leave.
And to some of the viewers who may question, the fact that Harbor Interfaith is here in San Pedro, this is why we're seeing an increase in homelessness in San Pedro and Wilmington. What would you say to that?
Well, actually, the one decrease in this area has been in CD 15 last year. Although there was a 1% increase, which is a very small incremental increase, in CD 15 alone, there was actually a decrease in the homeless population.
So let me put it this way. If you have a homeless individual living in Manhattan Beach, and the Manhattan Beach police officers refer that individual to Harbor Interfaith, is that homeless individual from Manhattan Beach going to end up in the streets here in San Pedro?
No.
How does that work?
Generally, what we'll try to do is we try to work with, because we don't have bridge housing or we don't have any shelters, we try to work with that person in the community that they're experiencing homelessness. We don't bring them down here because it wouldn't better the situation. And we know people generally want to stay in the community that they're in.
Right.
Even if we have people that are coming outside of our service planning area, we do try to reconnect them with that provider that is in that community.
So what you're saying is that for the South-based cities, including San Pedro and Wilmington, that there aren't enough beds, either emergency housing, permanent housing, Section 8, BASH, vouchers. Is that what you're saying?
That is exactly what I'm saying. You know, we need, there are about 4,100 people currently experiencing homelessness in Service Planning Area 8. We need that many homeless interventions and solutions to solve this problem.
So we're proposing 2 bridge home locations, one in San Pedro, one in Wilmington, of course one in Watts, which is in SPA 6. If indeed those 2 locations go online, how would you work with a bridge home program in those 2 communities?
So anybody that would be in those shelters would be directly connected to the coordinated entry system. Our goal would be to set together a housing plan for those individuals, and while they're in bridge homes, that they will be getting connected to other services. So whether that be mental health, recovery services, medical appointments, but just the opportunity to start to get healthy again too.
And it's my understanding that your caseworkers who are out in the field, these individuals who are homeless today, who suffer from mental illness, addiction, or living in a car, that are individuals, they come to you and say, I have nowhere to go. Are you limited on where you can send them based on their needs?
At that very moment, yes.
You're limited, why?
We're limited, why? Because there's not enough shelters. There's currently 15 shelter beds in Inglewood with US Vets that are for men only. There's another 20 beds down here in Long Beach with US Vets that's for women only. And then we work very closely with a faith-based shelter over in Wilmington that has 20 beds for women, 20 beds for men. So it leaves our hands kind of tied and limited. We work as closely as we can. A lot of our case management right now, I call it street-based case management. So we're working with people where they're at. So that's a lot of how we put together our housing plans. But I just, I think about the numbers of people that we've housed that have had substance abuse and mental health. And we look at 3-4 years down the line and they're still housed.
Yeah.
It's kind of been an amazing journey.
So to our viewers who, on Facebook and social media outlets, observations that are made, it's like, where are these people coming from? We're seeing new faces on a daily, weekly basis. Someone I just saw at Kentucky Fried Chicken sleeping on the grass there. I've never seen her before.
Right.
So how would you respond to those concerns and comments that, the debate that these folks are not from San Pedro, they're not from Wilmington, they're coming from all over?
I mean, it's a transient population, and I'll be the first one to say that not everybody that is homeless here in San Pedro is from San Pedro. But what I will tell you is that at least 80% of the people that are here have some direct ties to the community. They may not have been born and raised here, but they have ties. They may have you know, as we talked about relationships that they were in, that
Yeah.
they may have fallen
Yeah.
apart, but they have some type of ties to the community, and we really do try to make sure that, you know, we network them into the communities that they came from.
Right.
One of the things we're actually able to do too is, even if we've had people from out of state, we actually have funds now that if they have a friend or family member that they can go live with out of state, we can actually pay for their transportation to get them reunified. So it's not a matter of, let's just, you know, try to push through this knowing that this may not be successful
Right,
here.
right.
If we can get them reunited, let's get them reunited.
And that's part of the case management.
That's part of the case management.
You're doing mission work. We love you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for
Thank
getting
you.
these folks back to self-sustainability and being a warrior on this issue for this entire region.
Appreciate it.
Love
Thank you.
you.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks so much.